Attachment researchers have identified that the average woman unconsciously runs between 3 and 5 relational assessment sequences before she allows genuine emotional vulnerability with a partner. And none of them are conscious, none of them are announced, and most men fail them not because they did something wrong, but because they never knew the test was happening. This video is going to name all 3, explain the neuroscience underneath each one, and tell you exactly what passing and failing actually looks like in real behavior. Number 2 is the one that ends more potential relationships than almost anything else, and it never gets identified as the reason, because the story most people carry about why intimacy stalls is surface level. She is not ready. She has walls up. She is emotionally unavailable. She has been hurt before. And while some of those things may be true, they are descriptions of a symptom, not an explanation of a mechanism. What is actually happening underneath, what the attachment literature and the neuroscience of trust formation are very precise about, is that the nervous system of someone who has been hurt does not simply wait and hope. It runs active, systematic, largely unconscious assessments of safety before it allows the deeper system to open. These are not games. They are not manipulation. They are survival architecture, built by experience, running automatically, and completely invisible unless you know what to look for. Dr. Helen Fisher at the Biological Anthropology Department of Rutgers University, whose neuroimaging research on romantic attachment and pair bonding has spanned over 30 years, found that in early relational formation, the brain regions most associated with trust, specifically the anterior insula and the orbitofrontal cortex, show significantly reduced activation until specific behavioral signals are received and processed across multiple interactions. In practical terms, the brain does not extend trust because someone seems trustworthy. It extends trust after a pattern of consistent, predictable, emotionally attuned behavior accumulates enough evidence to shift the risk calculation. 74% of participants in her long-term bonding studies described the moment they allowed emotional vulnerability with a partner not as a decision they made, but as something that happened after the anxiety simply stopped arriving. The tests do not end with a result. They end when the nervous system finally exhales. Think about a specific dynamic you have probably either lived or watched. Everything is going well on the surface. The connection feels real. There is warmth, humor, attraction, genuine enjoyment of each other. And then something shifts, not dramatically, not with a fight or a clear rupture. Just a subtle cooling, a slight increase in distance, a feeling that something invisible was evaluated, and the result came back uncertain. And neither person can name exactly what happened. He felt like he did something wrong, but cannot identify what. She felt something that she might not even have words for. Just a quiet, internal signal that said not yet, not safe, not sure. That signal had a structure, and it had been running the whole time. Before we get into all 3, one of them will feel completely obvious when I name it. Do not let that convince you that you already understand it. The obvious ones are the ones people think they are passing while they are actively failing them, number 2 especially. The first silent test is called consistency under pressure. Here is what this actually means at the neurological level. The prefrontal cortex, when assessing relational safety, is not primarily tracking how someone behaves when things are easy. It is tracking the delta, the difference between how someone presents in comfortable moments versus how they respond when something creates friction, inconvenience, or mild stress. This is because the attachment system learned, usually early in life, that the most important information about whether someone is safe comes not from their best behavior, but from their flaw behavior. Anyone can be warm and attentive when everything is going well. The nervous system wants to know who shows up when they are tired, when plans change, when something does not go the way they wanted. So early in a connection, she will notice, without deciding to notice, how you handle a small frustration, how you respond when she is not at her most available. Whether the warmth is consistent across contexts or whether it flickers when conditions shift. She is not testing whether you are perfect. She is testing whether you are stable. Because the nervous system does not need perfect. It needs predictable, and a single moment of sharp coldness during friction will register in the threat assessment system in a way that 3 weeks of warmth will not fully undo. The second test, the one that ends the most, is called emotional containment capacity. And I need to explain exactly what this means because it is almost universally misread. When a woman begins, at some point in the early or middle stages of connection, to share something difficult, something emotionally weighted, something that carries vulnerability, she is not primarily looking for a solution. She is not asking to be fixed. What the attachment system is assessing in that moment is whether this person can receive emotional weight without becoming dysregulated by it, without making the moment about themselves, without moving too quickly to resolution because the discomfort of sitting with her feeling became too much for them to tolerate. The nervous system is asking a very specific question. Is there enough room in this person for the real version of me? And the failure mode, the one that fails this test invisibly, is the response that looks caring on the surface, but is actually a move to close the emotional discomfort down. The quick reassurance, the immediate reframe, the advice that arrives before the feeling has been fully received. From the outside, that looks like trying to help. From the nervous system on the other side of it, it registers as the feeling being too much, as evidence that full emotional honesty will produce management rather than presence. Passing this test is not complicated, but it requires something most people were never taught: the ability to stay in the discomfort of someone else's emotional experience without needing to resolve it for your own relief. Let me be direct with you here, because this is the part most people skip. These tests are not unfair. They are not irrational. They are the nervous system of someone who has learned that not everyone who seems safe actually is, doing the only thing it knows how to do, which is gather more data before opening the parts of herself that have been hurt before. You are not being assessed because you are suspect. You are being assessed because she has a history. And so do you. And so does everyone who has ever been close to someone and felt it fall apart in a place they did not see coming. The third test is called autonomous identity respect. This one operates at a slower frequency than the first two. It plays out over weeks rather than individual moments. And it is the one that determines whether the connection deepens into something real or plateaus permanently just below intimacy. What the nervous system is tracking here is whether your interest in her is an interest in who she actually is or an interest in who she is in relation to you. This distinction matters biologically. Oxytocin, the bonding hormone most associated with deep attachment and felt safety, is released most reliably in interactions where a person feels genuinely seen as a separate, autonomous self, not as a function of someone else's need for connection. The assessment running here is quiet and cumulative. Does he get curious about the parts of me that have nothing to do with him? Does he make space for my perspective when it differs from his? Does his warmth have conditions on it? Does it change when I am less available, less agreeable, less focused on him? Does he respect the full shape of who I am, or only the parts that fit comfortably into what he wants the connection to be? Failing this test does not produce a confrontation. It produces a ceiling. A warmth that never quite reaches the depth that both people can feel is theoretically available, but somehow never arrives. These three tests are not a performance she is putting on. They are the nervous system doing the only thing biology designed it to do before it allows the most vulnerable parts of a person to become accessible to another. She is not withholding intimacy as a strategy. She is protecting something real. And the fact that you now understand the architecture of what she is assessing, that is not an advantage to exploit. It is information that changes how you show up. There is one more layer to this that this video did not cover, because it belongs somewhere else. Understanding what she is testing for is one thing. Understanding what shaped the specific calibration of her tests, why her threshold is set where it is, what experiences wrote those particular parameters into her nervous system. That is the piece that changes how you see her entirely. Without it, you will pass the tests and still miss her. That next part is where this actually becomes real.